As far as the Vikings go, we don't know for sure who will start. Maybe it will be Carson Wentz. He did throw for a lot of yards against the Steelers. He didn't really play that well overall, but he did throw for a lot of yards, so we don't know what's going to happen there. And obviously, J.J. McCarthy and his injury or not injury, we're not sure. The Vikings are a much better offensive team than the Browns. The Browns, as I mentioned earlier, averaging 14 points a game. The Vikings averaging 25, so just a smidge more. The Vikings have a pretty stingy defense. They only giving up 20 points a game this year. And again, the Browns scoring 14 points a game, so it doesn't look too great for that. However, I will say the one thing going for the Browns, before I turn over to you and hear your thoughts on this, but the one thing really going for the Browns, as we were discussing before the show started, is probably the run game. Because the Vikings' run defense is probably their weakness. They give up about 109 rushing yards per game, 4.5 yards per carry to opposing running backs. Quinton Judkins, as we mentioned, has been a monster. The only thing is if they can continue to flummox Joe Flacco at quarterback, and they might be able to, I think, hold back Quinton Judkins. However, Quinton Judkins so far has proven week to week that he can succeed even without complimentary football. Maybe not as well as he could be, but he has shown that he can succeed. So you wonder if the Browns win, it's probably going to have to come off the back of, I'm thinking, 2 Quinton Judkins touchdowns, over 100 yards, somewhere between 100 and 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, and obviously the defense also plays well. What's your feeling on this game coming into it?
Yeah, so one note too, on the run defense. So first of all, not very good, right? But also, if you look at who they've played, they did play the Falcons, who are a good running team, but then they also played, like the Bengals, and Chase Brown's not been like great in the run game this year. And they played the Steelers, and Warren was out, so they're just playing Kenneth Gainwell, and they gave up quite a few. So I mean, they've played a few backs that are not exactly scaring people, and still don't have a good run defense. On the other hand, Brian Flores is a brilliant defensive coordinator, so you do worry about maybe some run blitzes or come up with creative ways to force it, because one thing with the Steelers is that Rodgers is not his best anymore, but he's seen a lot of defenses, so he can he's seen most of the things that have been tried.
You're not going to get him because you confused him necessarily,
not often,
right?
Yeah, so he gets.
You might rush him, and he's not his reaction time is as quick, or doesn't escape the pocket as smoothly. But it's not because
he still has a good arm.
You threw something confusing at him.
So if you give him a good shot, you'll get that DK Metcalf big play.
Yeah,
and they don't have the best corners. They've gotten away with a lot, but their corners are questionable.
Well, they're a well-coached team, the Vikings.
Yeah, but they're extremely well-coached.
Right, I mean,
in terms of physicality, speed and things like that, on their corners. Right, and so they're really well-coached. So you do worry about the run blitzes, and then can Flacco take advantage? If they present that easy spot where it's okay, downfield, but it's pretty easy. There were moments in the Lions game where he looked good, but a lot of times it just feels like he's not able to consistently take advantage of it, and the Vikings will overplay. And as such, while Judkins will still probably have a pretty good game because they present a weakness and Judkins is good, I'm afraid you might end up in that 90-yardish spot where you just don't have enough to challenge them. I do think, again, it will take them a while to score. I think our defense is really, really good. I think you're kind of hoping maybe for McCarthy because he seems to be more prone to making mistakes and making turnover-worthy plays, which that could help your offense, right? If you're getting that, then your defense can help you score. Well, that might change the game. But also, ultimately, Wentz made a couple of those mistakes. So what you're really coming down to is maybe can your defense create offense, and then your running game can carry the rest of the way.
Yeah.
It's possible. Ultimately, the Vikings are going to be set up where they've waited a week over there already. They are also very, very angry. Things against the Steelers are going to be motivated. Didn't go the way they wanted to. I think they're going to look for a comeback game against the Browns, and I'd love to say we pull it out, but I think this is just the final nail in Joe Flacco's coffin, so to speak.
Yeah,
not his coffin. But his playing his playing career. His starting career. I think it's over this week. I think this is kind of it for him. I think he's going to show up. It's going to be pretty unspectacular, and they're finally going to pull the trigger on Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, you do get the feeling this is probably, and I'm hoping this is probably the last week we see Joe Flacco playing. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Right before we touch up, though, I do want to add in our score predictions for myself. Look, our score predictions have been very pessimistic the last few weeks. Unfortunately, we've been right. I mean, this past week, we pretty much nailed it almost to the exact point. What did we say? 33-13, I think is what we predicted it to be. It was pretty much almost exactly that. I mean, ours were slightly different, but basically exactly the same.
I think it was 30-13 and 30-10 or something.
Yeah, but we pretty much nailed that one. Not that it was so hard to predict, but I'm just saying. This coming up week, maybe we should be betting more, right? No, this coming up week though, for me, I think the Browns defense will do a little better versus the Vikings as they don't have such an amazing offense. Carson Wentz, I don't think is that amazing. The Browns do have good corners. I'm seeing the Vikings pulling off about 24 points. I think the Browns offense will struggle against the Vikings again. I haven't seen any reason to think otherwise except for that Quinton Judkins point, but it hasn't been enough in the last weeks to translate to more than 14 points per game. I don't think it will again this week. I think the Vikings are going to win this game 24-14, and that will be the end of Joe Flacco.
I just have 24-17. I have a little bit more, but I think that's going to become via the defense creating an opportunity.
Sure.
Either scoring it themselves or putting them
Give
right
them the
inside
ball at
the
the
red
50,
zone.
the offense moves 10 yards, and they get a 50-yard field goal, right?
Yeah, so like I think they're going to create a little bit more. No, I think they're going to create a touchdown.
Yeah.
Like inside the red zone or straight up score. And so that will create a touchdown, and then the offense will itself score like 10 points.
Yeah.
That's why I think is more.
The defense has been doing that the last few weeks, giving the offense at least one, short field per game.